And now I would just like to summarize at this point before opening it up for discussion. I think from the morning I'm in this panel, we were able to listen to all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of input on this topic that we all feel so passionate about. And I just have a couple of things I wanted to say. I've heard a lot this morning about community mobilization, about community participation. And to my mind, anytime I hear that, the flags come up. And I think women being burdened again with volunteerism. I think of women being blamed again. And I heard quite a few of that this morning, except it was modulated a bit by our artist guest, who told us that she really at the end couldn't blame her mother, though she blamed her at the beginning. And I'm just thinking that we have to introduce that word again, patriarchy. Because really, why do women do what they do? And importantly, how they do it. Because a lot of times it's not about why. I mean, they do it, they want to preserve the honor of their children, but how they do it is really the issue of genital mutilation that we are talking about. And why they do it is about also what the society expects them to do. And this is all driven by patriarchy. The second point that comes to my mind with regards to this is the whole issue about the media messages. And media messages not perpetuating gender inequality in their content, in the words, in the graphics that is used. A lot of times when we go into countries and examine policies and things, even informational materials, we see pictures, even in very well-intentioned campaigns, that are still giving the same old roles to women, that are still subtly blaming women for things that are happening. I'll give you an example. In immunization campaigns, oftentimes you only see the mother, and it talks about immunization is good for your children, as if it's just the responsibility of the mother, which translates to, okay, if my child is not immunized, I'm a bad mother. So I mean, there are some ways that the media messages, the content, the graphics that are used can perpetuate gender inequality. So I want to go back again, but that has changed. I think UNICEF is trying to, that has changed. Now you see pictures of immunization with fathers also. And I'm just throwing a challenge to our colleagues that are going to be now revamping their efforts at scaling up efforts at abandonment of FGM, to be mindful of this at the back of our minds. Another thing I wanted to, just to categorize the points I was making, I was asked to make as a discussant, is about bridges. Let us examine the characteristics of bridges. Over the weekend, I was in a country near a very famous airport, and I was really amazed for the first time to see on the back roads signs that said "Weak Bridge." I saw about 3 around Heathrow Terminal 5 in the back roads. Of course, we often don't go that way, we just get dropped at the gate. But I was fortunate to see this, and I just thought of this session. Of course, there are strong bridges and there are weak bridges. I was just thinking, why were those termed weak bridges? Because they were temporary. Because you could see it was during the construction of the Terminal 5. They have been abandoned already. And it says weak bridge, so nobody else wants to go over them again. And so we know there are weak bridges and there are strong bridges. And it's not about the technology alone that makes them weak or strong. Because there are bamboo bridges that are stronger than some of the bridges made of iron that are not properly joined. You know about the big bridge that collapsed in Minnesota a few years ago. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say as we are building bridges, they need to be strong, and it's not about all the technical information around them that makes them strong. Strong is also about what they are made of. Bridges take a long time to build. We've heard that a lot of times this morning. And my third point about bridges is bridges that don't meet in the middle are no bridges at all. We've heard this morning how researchers are starting to build a bridge, and then people that are in the programming and policy end start to build their bridges, and they don't really meet in the middle, and so it's difficult to call it a bridge. It's a structure of sorts. And I dare say if we examine a lot of the things we do, we'll find that some of them that try to build bridges really don't end up being bridges. So finally, what bridges do we need to build or reinforce? Reinforcing existing bridges. We heard about research. heard a lot about how research needs to be bridged with policies and programs, especially with advocacy. We heard about new trends in data that is now coming up, especially from what Elise just told us, that even though we have not purposely looked to articulate it in that way, they're actually seeing some changes, some downward trends in some countries, and some upward trends in others. What does that mean? So research into policies and programs is not just about publishing them, it's about also finding out what does this research mean. And I think that's a challenge for research in general, but especially for this field, where there's really a lot of things that still need to be researched upon. We heard about the good work of the donor working group that has tried to put the FGM work in a broader basket of things, in a broader ship that is moving fast, with the SG campaign on violence against women, and that is a very happening thing. However, when you put things in a big basket, of course there are risks involved, and I think many of us here who have worked in policies and programs for years know what those risks are. And as we go forward with this issue, we will try and be mindful of those. Another bridge that I would like to talk about is about activist to activist bridge. We heard today about a lot of good work going on, but I didn't hear a lot about men. There is a group of men now called Men Engage Alliance that really one of their themes is to work on violence against women, men against rape, men against this and that. I work very closely with them by virtue of my work in WHO. I have not had much said about them doing anything on female genital mutilation. This is a way to get this into their violence against women basket as something that they could also work on, especially the ones in the West, I mean the global North. Again, we heard about the bridge of good practice and scaling up. And I hear a lot about good practice can flow from Africa to the developed countries, to the more developed countries, on this particular issue, and probably on other issues that pertain to immigrant populations. That's a bridge. And then finally, there's a bridge about surveillance, data, indicators. That could be termed under the research, but again, there's an aspect of it that is dealing with programming as well, because it's, data is not all about research data. It's also about data that is generated by all those health workers in all those clinics and all those people that are working in NGOs. How do we capture that data and how can we use it on this issue and other issues, especially the violence against women issue, in which this is now being also put on. And finally, about the challenges. We've used the word gender inequality a lot this morning, gender-based discrimination and so on. And perhaps the reason why traditional practices that are really based on gender inequality last for so long, besides patriarchy, is the fact that they are so well-intentioned. A lot of discriminatory practices are well-intentioned, and it takes some form of analysis to be able to isolate the fact that, hey, this is a discriminatory. You know, we want to protect the girls, we want to protect the women from this, from that. Who's protecting who, and for what purpose? And I would just like to close with a quote from Paulo Freire, who's one of my heroes, really, because I would term him one of the fathers of working with the community. And he says, one cannot expect positive results from an educational political action program which fails to respect the particular view of the world held by the people. And I must say, in the FGM community, we are respecting the views of the people, maybe not enough, in that their involvement in some of the things that we are doing will be better still. Such a program constitutes cultural invasion, good intentions notwithstanding. We should, let's keep this in our mind as we invigorate ourselves today, 2011, Day of Zero Tolerance. And I would like to open the floor now to some comments